Welcome to Blonde Cards and Crafts. Let's make something together. Hello! Today we're going to use the Creative Stamping Magazine, issue 96, and these are the stamps that come in the magazine. I'm also going to be using the Made to Surprise Swing Card Die Set, Mechanism and Aperture. So these are the lovely stamps that came in issue 96 of Creative Stamping, and they're really just so chilled out, relaxed stamps. There's also these bonus 2 stamp images that you can use that came with it. I won't be using them today. I'm going to focus on the large stamp set, and I'm going to use the trees, the 2 trees, as well as the hammock for the front of my card. Now I'm going to use the dies that came in the swing card die set to make my swing card, but I wanted to embellish it using these stamps. When I saw these and I saw the hammock, I thought that would make a cool thing for in a swing card. So hence the reason I'm using these dies and these stamps. So I have some cardstock here. This cardstock is for using with alcohol markers or with colored pencils. So I'm just getting an idea here of how much cardstock I'm going to need and what I'm going to use to stamp. And for a finish, I'm going to use my Misty. I also had a piece of acetate there, and I use that when I'm doing some reverse stamping. And this is one of the papers that come in the Misty. I laminated it so that it is a wipeable surface. So now I'm going to pop my paper into my Misty with my stamps, but first I'm going to cut that down. Now I've placed my stamps down on my paper and I'm going to pick them up on the lid of the Misty. And then I can use my ink to stamp that out. I like to prep my stamps by taking a microfiber cloth as well as just some water in a spray bottle. And what I'm going to do is clean the stamps because there's a residue left on those stamps when they're processed in the factory. And I just find that it'll give a better stamping when I do this. Once I'm happy that all the residue has been taken off the stamps, then I can look at what ink I'm going to use to stamp them with. And there are all different ink pads on the market that you can use depending on how you're coloring them. So this is a Finesse by Spectrum Noir. This is an alcohol-proof dye ink and it's non-smear with alcohol. Then you've got your VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and you can use that with an embossing powder. There's the Ranger Archival ink in jet black, and then there's the Memento Tuxedo black ink. So each of these inks can be used depending on what medium you're using. And today I'm going to use the Ranger Archival ink to stamp these down. I'm going to be using my coloring pencils. These are watercolor pencils, but I'm not going to be using watercolors with them, so this ink will be fine. It's a juicy pad. I like to use it. I tend to go for either the VersaFine, which is my first choice generally, because it gives brilliant stamping and I don't find I'm going back re-stamping repeatedly. Then between the Spectrum Noir and the Ranger Archival ink, they're both more or less the same. I like them both, but again it depends whether I'm using my zigs, whether I'm using my coloring pencils, or whether I'm using my Spectrum Noir alcohol markers. So I'm going to apply a little bit of pressure now onto the stamps just to get a better stamped image, and I'm going to go back in again, re-ink up these stamps and then put that back down. And once I'm happy then that my stamped image looks well and is nicely covered, I'll then move on to coloring those in. So I have my coloring pencils here and I'm going to use these without water. I'm just going to use them as a coloring medium. These are the only coloring pencils I have. My daughter got these for me for Christmas when I first started card making, and They're not an amazing brand or anything, but I find them fine. As a novice, and I mean a real novice to colouring, I have these and I have the Zigs and I have the Spectrum Noir alcohol markers. I do like using these, and I think my next investment is going to be a good set. I'm not quite sure what ones to get. The Arteza are good. I suppose it depends on how much you want to spend, but I think that'll be my next investment. The Frugal Crafter, she does some great videos regarding different ones, so I think I'll have to have a look at what she's recommending for a beginner to use. So I'm just going to color these in, and I've sped everything up with the coloring because you don't want to be watching me coloring. I have the image that I'm going to use on the card there to the side just for my color choices. I don't have a great selection of colors in my pencils, so although the flowers are a kind of an orangey, pinky kind of, I don't know, I'm sure there's a name for the color that's on those flowers, coral maybe or something. So I'm just kind of matching as best I can. And in hindsight, looking at this, doing the voiceover, maybe I should have put a little bit of orange into that coloring. I'm going to go ahead now and color in our palm trees, and I'm going to just quickly show you me starting this and then finishing it. I'm not going to have you going through. It would make the video too long, so we'll skip through that bit. So I'm nearly finished now coloring in the leaves of our palm tree, and I love coloring. I'm not very good, but practice makes perfect, and I generally have music on in the background and I'm humming away, or I'll have a book on. I have a Kindle and it reads the books to me without having to use Audible. So generally that's what I have going on in the background when I'm crafting. So there are no dies for this, we just get the stamp in the magazine. So I'm going to fussy cut these out, and I'm doing my best to move the paper, not the scissors. I do enjoy fussy cutting, I have to say. I have a scan and cut, it's on a shelf, I never use it. It's so much hassle to bring this thing out and switch it on and get it up and running in my craft room at the moment, but I'm looking forward to changing my craft room and having a designated area for that where I can just walk over, switch it on and fire away with it. So that's hopefully in my future when I update my craft room. So with my images cut out, the next thing I need to do is work on my card base. And for that, I'm going to make a card base myself, but you can use a shop-bought ready-made one. I have a piece of cardstock here measuring 6 by 12, and I've scored it on the long side at 6. And this will give us a top folding card because that's what we need for our swinging mechanism. I'm also going to take a piece of white cardstock, and that's going to be for the back of the card. We need somewhere to write our sentiment or our message, and I have that piece here. This measures 5 3/4 by 5 3/4, and I'm going to stamp a sentiment on that before I stick that down. Now we're going to look at the dies from the Made to Surprise die set. So this piece is going to give us our tent piece at the bottom of our card base, and I'm just looking at which orientation I'm going to cut this out of my card. This little piece here is the mechanism which will sit inside our card base, and then we have another one, this piece here. This is going to be the swinging mechanism. And you can see these are the rest of the dies that come in the die set. I just have them on a magnetic sheet. This piece I'm showing you is for the opening at the front of my card. I could have die cut out a round opening and put a frame around it using this 2 circle dies, but I figure I'm going to go for this lovely shape. I need to make sure that the die is down far enough that it'll hide the little mechanism that's going to sit in the middle at the top there. But I think with the images that we've colored and fussy cut out, that will be a nice little filler for around the edge. So I'm happy with that now. I'm going to go ahead and die cut out all these pieces. So I have die cut out this lovely shape into the front of the card, and it die cuts out beautifully. I used my Big Shot Plus, but it will go through a regular Big Shot for you, or a Gemini, any of those machines. So I love this. It gives this uneven shape around, and you have these leaves then sitting around the edge. It's really lovely, and this can be used on any style of card. You know, you don't have to just use this die for this card style. It's definitely something I will pull out and use again. It would be great for a shaker card. Okay, so that's the front of our card, die cut out. Next I have the large piece, and it die cuts out this. This is going to make our tent fold at the bottom or the base of our card. There's 3 score lines, and all of these need to be folded into mountain folds. So I'm just folding the middle one, folding it at half, and then I'm going to fold each of the side ones on the score line, and I will burnish them with a bone folder. I want a nice crisp fold on all these score lines. This piece is really handy too, because it's going to stop our card from splaying open, and you don't want that to happen when you have a swinging mechanism. So this is going to work really, really well. So that's all done now. We're going to look at the next die that I've used for the next piece, and that's the center mechanism piece for inside. So it's this little piece here. It die cuts out 2 holes, and it puts 3 score lines into the piece. So the score line in the middle, we're going to literally fold the piece in half, just like that. And then we're going to fold these little tabs back then, one to the right and one to the left. And that'll give us our little mechanism for inside. And now we need to look at the swinging mechanism, and that's using this die. So you can die cut this out in your matching cardstock, and it'll cut it out perfectly. Or you can die cut it out using some acetate. Now you will need to make sure, if you're using acetate because you want this swinging piece to be invisible, that you use a really light quality acetate. Now this is the acetate I used. It impressed into it the shape. It didn't cut it out perfectly, but I just ran around it with my scissors and finished off wherever it didn't cut out. Now before I go any further, I want to take one of the sentiments from the stamp set and stamp that out on my white panel for the back of the card. So I'm going to do that using my Misty and my Spectrum Noir black ink. The sentiment I'm using is, "We do not remember days, we remember moments." And I'm going to stamp happy birthday and put that on the front of the card. And I know it's not strictly a sentiment you might find on a happy birthday card, but I think birthdays are moments that we do remember. So I thought it was fitting on this card, and that's what I went with. So let's assemble our card. I have my pattern paper here, and this measures a little over 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. I've cut this down to 5 7/8 by 5 7/8 to fit in here. I'm going to use my liquid glue. This is the Art glitter glue, and I'm going to use that to stick it down. You can use whatever glue you have, whether it's a liquid or a tape. So once I have that down, then I'm going to add my little mechanism. And you'll see here I'm adding glue from the score line down to the middle. I'm going to press it together, and then I'm going to add some glue to one of the little tabs. And this one I'm going to stick down to the middle of the card, just below the score line. So it's right there at the top below the score line. Add glue to the other little wing, and then fold over our card front. Now we need to work on the swing mechanism. So I have a brad, I've pressed that through the front, then that's going through the hole in our green card mechanism. And then I'm going to open the little wings at the back of the brad. Now the trick to that is to make sure that you don't close those little legs too tightly. Otherwise your acetate won't swing, or your card, whatever you use there for the swing. So next is the exciting part, and that's adding the hammock. And I'm just looking at my placement there, how high or how low I want that to be. So I'm going to use some blue liner tape. It's also the same as red liner tape, only it's by a different brand. So I want to make sure that that piece is going to be well attached to my acetate, and it's always good to use a really strong double-sided tape when you're using acetate. So I'm going to decide how far or how up or how low down I want my little hammock to sit, and I'm chuffed with this. I'm absolutely delighted with it. And I'm eager to see how my little palm trees are going to look on the front. So I've put some foam tape at the top of the tree on the side that will stick to my card base, and I'm using liquid glue then on the trunk. So I'm just going to sit that there, and the foam tape there at the top will give a little bit of added dimension. So I'll do the same now with this other one. I'll use my art glitter glue on the bottom and trunk of that, and then I have some foam tape there on the right hand side to lift that up, and I love it. I love these dies. I think they're brilliant. They're so handy. So now I'm going to take the tent part, and you can see here I'm using a little liquid glue on one of the little edges there, the tab. So I'm going to stick that down on the inside, and then I'll fold it in half and then put some glue on the bottom on this side. And it's brilliant because I'll just pop down the front of the card and sit that on top, and then there you go. There's your tent fold, and no measuring and cutting and scoring, all done for you with the die. Fabulous. So I've added a bit of pressure to make sure that takes. Have another little swing at it. So cool. And now we just need to embellish the front. So it's the next day and I've got a new mat. Yes, I ordered one and it arrived this morning, and I couldn't but help to put it down. So do forgive going from the pink to the grey. But you can see here I have all my bits and pieces ready. I've taken these little flowers as well as some of the leaf dies that come in this kit, and I have put them all together. The flowers are here, and I have put some Nuvo drops in those. I'm just looking to see. It's glitter drops called Yellow Bird, and I had these all put together so that they would dry. And here you can see I have all my leaves ready, and I use the dies for those. I'm putting the happy birthday down there at the bottom right, and that's kind of going to cover up that corner of the bottom of my colouring. I'm going to go ahead now and embellish the card using the flowers and leaves, and while I do that I'm going to play some music in the background. And now it's just the finishing touches on our card. I'm using some Nuvo crystal drops, and these are called bottle green. I'm tapping my card because it will help to dome over your Nuvo drops. So it's a little tip there. I'm going to use my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen to add a little bit of sparkle to touches around the card. And in hindsight, I should have done this first and left the Nuvo drops till last. But hey, I'm a rebel. So yeah, no, I forgot. Anyway, that's it. That's our card. I've taken a little video and I'm going to show you that next so you can see the movement of the card when you're looking directly at it. I'm also going to leave some images of the card we've made. If you liked my video, you might give it a thumbs up, and if you're a subscriber, thanks for subscribing. If not, you might click on the bell icon down below and you'll be notified each time I post a new video. So that's it. Take care, stay safe, and bye for now.